Good afternoon, folks. This is Deb Delapiana, and this is not a short take. This is indeed the Factivist Report. And I am recording this on Monday as opposed to Sunday because I am for the next few weeks without my partner here, Dave Denton, who is on vacation. So today's subject is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about women in politics. What kind of advancements have we made? Where are we? What do the numbers look like? What states look good? Some of the women who are doing a phenomenal job. And let's not make the assumption that just because you're a woman, you're good, because that's not true. We got a couple of them too. So I want to start with just a few statistics, okay? So in the House and the Senate combined, we have a total of 153 women serving. Now, that's a record number. And I'm going to just share the screen here because I got some stuff to show you. So hang on a second. That's a record number. But it is still not representative of where women are in the population at large for a number of reasons, okay? Which is that there are still people in this country not ready for women to be elected. It's a fact of life. It's not a good fact, but it's a fact. So there are 153 women. 109 of those women are Democrats, which makes up 43% of the Democratic Party numbers, and 44 Republicans, which make up 16%. But if you look at the statistics in the census from 2017 to 2021, we don't have 2023 yet, but women account for 16 years and older, account for 58.7% of the population. So we are way under representative government for women. So there are some things we've done. For example, Patty Murray from Washington was sworn in this year. She is the first woman to be Senate President pro tempore. So she is the first woman to ever achieve that in the United States. She has been in the Senate for a while, but this was a major accomplishment for her. Let's look at some other numbers. Female governors, 49 women. 2 of them are acting governors due to vacancies. Female lieutenant governors, 22 serving as lieutenant governors. Okay, no state has had a female governor and lieutenant governor at the same time, except for 2. The first state to achieve that this year was Massachusetts, and the second state of all states was Arkansas, where Sarah Huckabee Sanders reigned supreme as governor. God only knows how that happened. So let's talk a little bit about. We're not going to get into so much specific women. We are in the governor's slot because as we go down the road towards 2024, we're going to be talking about specific candidates. I didn't want to get into too much of that today. These governors that we're going to talk about today are not up for re-election in 2024. So, you know, we know who we have in the House and the Senate. I'll just throw some names out there. Okay, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Tammy Baldwin, Nancy Pelosi, who is a boss. Okay, she served with dignity. You may not have agreed with her on everything, but when it came time for her to hand over the reins, she certainly didn't incite an insurrection. Catherine Clark and Ayanna Pressley, On the other side of the aisle, we have Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Elise Stefanik, and Marsha Blackburn to look at as role models for women. Not, okay? And then we also have Carrie Lake, who has sounding like now she's going to run for the Senate because she thinks she's the only one that can possibly win. I disagree with that. But let's talk a little bit about where we are here, okay? And we're going to talk specifically the 2022 midterms. They sent nearly 24 new congresswomen to Washington. One of those was Becca Balint, a Vermont Democrat who became both the first woman and the first openly LGBTQ woman elected to Congress from that state. Okay? Of the 22 freshman representatives, female representatives sent, 15 are Democrats and 7 were Republicans. The Senate gained just one female during the midterms, and it was Katie Britt, who was the first woman senator from Alabama. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of people that I really think need to be talked about for obvious reasons, but you might not see it as so obvious, but I'll make it obvious to you. Let's talk about Kamala Harris, and that is the correct way to say her name. I'm really particular about that as someone whose last name has been butchered many times over the years. Kamala Harris is the way you say her name. She is the Vice President of the United States. She's the first female Vice President of the United States. She is also the first woman of color. Her parents emigrated from India and Jamaica. Okay. And for a long time now, Kamala Harris has been attacked by a lot of people. And I'm going to maintain that that's because not only is she the first woman elected to the vice presidency, but because she is the first woman of color elected to the vice presidency. There is no getting away from this, folks. She's a vice president. She doesn't set policy. She has performed her role as vice president the way every other vice president has performed his role, with the exception, of course, of Mike Pence, who, under the guidance of his leader, put a lot of people at risk with COVID-19, okay? But Kamala Harris is doing just what Joe Biden did as Barack Obama's vice president. She is an emissary, okay? She was attacked for her not being at the border. She was put in charge of the border thing, okay? She was attacked for not being at the border. What would she accomplish at the border? We know Marjorie Taylor Greene went to the border. We know Lauren Boebert went to the border. They both went there to stir up bullshit. That's why they went there. They went there for the photo op. There are people at the border who do their job. Kamala Harris doesn't need to stay at the border 24/7 to do her job. She is an emissary. She is the woman who went to Gay Pride. Okay? She went to San Francisco's Pride Parade with her husband. And why did we do that? Because guess what? Gay people live in this country and they pay their taxes. They are the Democratic Party base, just as, Christian nationalists are the Republican Party base. Christian nationalists, racists and bigots. All of the senators and legislators show up at Turning Point USA. They turn up at the America First stuff. This is no different, except that Kamala Harris is not a racist or a bigot. She has held previous positions. She was a district attorney of San Francisco. She was elected in 2003. She provided first-time drug offenders with the opportunity to earn a high school degree and find employment. It was designated a national model of innovation for law enforcement by the United States Department of Justice. You know, would you prefer to have people convicted of drug possession or use come out and reoffend and go back to prison? This is all part of, we're trying to be a better nation. This is all part of what she has done. She was elected in 2010 to California as California's Attorney General, and she was the head of the largest justice department in the United States. She established the first Bureau of Children's Justice and instituted several first-of-their-kind reforms that ensured greater transparency and accountability. She also won a $20 billion settlement for Californians whose homes have been foreclosed on, as well as a $1.1 billion settlement for students and veterans who are taken advantage of by for-profit education companies. She defended the Affordable Care Act in court, enforced environmental law, and was a national leader in the movement for marriage equality. In 2017, she was sworn into the United States Senate. Okay? She has championed immigration. She has championed the plight of refugees. And on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, she worked with members of both parties to keep the American people safe from foreign threats and crafted bipartisan legislation in securing American elections. She visited Iraq, Jordan, and Afghanistan to meet with service members and assess the situation on the ground. She also served on the Senate Judiciary Committee. During her tenure on the committee, she participated in hearings for 2 Supreme Court nominees. She championed legislation to combat hunger, provide rent relief, improve maternal health care, and address the climate crisis as a member of the Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works. Her bipartisan anti-lynching bill passed the Senate in 2018. Her legislation to preserve historically Black colleges and universities was signed into law, as was her effort to infuse much-needed capital into low-income communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. For those out there who say that Kamala Harris wasn't qualified for the vice presidency, I say bullshit. She is more than qualified. As vice president, Kamala Harris has worked in partnership with President Biden to get America vaccinated, rebuild the economy, reduce child poverty, and pass an infrastructure law that will lift up communities that have been left behind. You know what? Everywhere I drive in Massachusetts, there's a whole ton of stuff being done. They just laid down, high-speed internet on several of the roads on my way to work every day. They're repairing roads. Our Route 28, Main Street, Stoneham, has been a disaster. They're repaving that now. And this is what government is supposed to be doing, okay? This is what government is supposed to be doing. So I'm kind of tired of all the people, even on the Democratic side of the aisle, saying that they need to find a new VP because she's not popular. She's not popular among the Republicans. Those are the people out there on social media shooting her down, okay? She does not need to be replaced on the ticket by Gretchen Whitmer or anyone else. And I love Gretchen Whitmer, but this is not Gretchen Whitmer's time. Kamala Harris deserves to be on Joe Biden's 2024 ticket. So let's move along here. Let's talk about the squad, comprised of now, I believe, 8 people, but the first 4 congresswomen known as the squad were certainly targeted by Donald Trump's racist tweets. We have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. We have Rashida Tlaib, elected in 2018, the first Palestinian-American woman to serve in Congress. Ayanna Pressley, the first Black congresswoman to represent the state of Massachusetts, my state. and Ilhan Omar, the first Somali American member of Congress. And by the way, Ilhan and Rashida are the first two Muslim women ever elected to Congress. Now, these women were the subject of brutal harassment by Donald Trump and other members of the MAGA GOP. Ilhan Omar especially. She was married to her brother. That's how she got here. It was almost as bad as the whole birther thing with Barack Obama, which I would like to remind everyone, the person who started that movement was Donald Trump before he was even thinking about politics. Okay? These women have served with dignity. They deserve to be reelected again in 2024. And by the way, these are the women who are moving the Democratic Party further into the progressive mode. And that's what their job is. That was why they were elected to begin with. But what they don't do is they don't divide, okay? They push and they fight for their causes. But at the end of the day, they know they have to pull together and support the Democratic Party. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has just endorsed Joe Biden. And I'd like to mention here, Pramila Jayapal, who's actually the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, who has recently stated that she believes he deserves a second term to finish the job that they started together. So Joe Biden has been working with the progressives as well. He understands that that's the future of America. And he understands that they are needed to win. And that's what they understand, and that's what they get. Okay? These women are up for re-election in 2024, and they all deserve to be back. They deserve to be back because they are representative of the people they serve in their districts. Okay? We are not a white nation. That is absolutely a bona fide bunch of propaganda being pushed by the right wing. And you know what? We have evolved as a nation. I don't care what it was in 1776. This is 2023. Now we're going to talk about Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, whose leadership was in no way an insignificant part of that state becoming a trifecta state for the Democrats this year in the 2022 midterms. Okay. So I want to remind everybody just who Gretchen Whitmer is. Gretchen Whitmer, in her first term, was the subject, was the intended victim of a plot to kidnap her by white supremacists, the Wolverines, I believe the militia was called, simply because she enforced mask mandates and lockdowns during the COVID pandemic. Okay, these people have since been brought to justice. One is serving 16 years, one is serving 19 years, and there are several other people, by the way, who have been charged and found guilty and will be going to prison. Okay, they made 14 arrests in this case, and several of them are going to prison for this. And, all the while this was going on, the line that we were getting from the GOP and from the right-wingers out there on social media was that, this whole thing was set up by the FBI. They were the ones that did this. They the ones that planned this. They were going to kidnap her. They were literally going to kidnap her from her vacation home and blow up a bridge, okay, to avoid being caught. And you know what? Gretchen Whitmer never wavered from her position. She did not cower. She's tough. And she's the real deal. And do I believe someday she could be president of the United States? I actually hope someday she is. But this is not the time. Okay? Let's talk about what Gretchen Whitmer has done in office in Michigan. All right? She has signed over 1,000 bipartisan bills, working on both sides of the aisle. She moved dirt to fix the dam roads, repairing over 16,000 lane miles and more than 1,200 bridges. while supporting over 89,000 good-paying jobs. Roll back the retirement tax and quintuple the working families tax credit, putting $1 billion back into Michigan's pockets. This is what she's supposed to be doing as a governor. Repealed the extreme 1931 abortion ban and expanded the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. Signed common sense gun legislation that keeps Michigan communities safe. Established Michigan as a top state for electric vehicle and battery investments. Secured over 35,000 auto jobs since taking office. And oversaw unemployment rates under 4%, 2 out of 3 times they have ever been that low in Michigan history. She has also worked to ensure quality, affordable health care and lowered the cost of prescription drugs in Michigan. She has literally knocked it out of the park since working with the trifecta. Okay, she has a Democratic all the way around for the first time in over 40 years. She has a Democratic legislature. She has worked to expand civil rights and protections for LGBTQ and transgender people. She has, worked on women's body autonomy. She has brought back the rights in Michigan for women to control their own decisions on healthcare. She has, she secured a $2 billion investment from Ford, creating 3,200 jobs. She has been rebuilding the water infrastructure. She has connected Michigan to high-speed internet. This is what governors do. She has landed a $7 billion investment from GM to create and retain 5,000 jobs. People. And in terms of her protection for the LGBTQ community, I can't stress how important this is, because we are in a country now where every single Republican is literally working to take away rights, not to protect rights. But Gretchen Whitmer is doing that. She has signed a directive to strengthen protections against discrimination in state employment, including for gender identity or expression and sexual orientation. Okay? She called for the expansion of the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. She became the first, this seems small, but it's not. She became the first governor in Michigan to fly the pride flag on a building. She issued a proclamation in 2021 making June Pride Month to recognize the accomplishments of the LGBTQ community. And she became the first Michigan governor to march in the Motor City Pride Parade. She signed an executive directive to prohibit Michigan Department of Health and Human Services from using any state and federal funds for conversion therapy on minors. In December of 21, she filed an amicus brief in the Michigan Supreme Court arguing the language of the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation. Your elected representatives are supposed to expand people's rights, not deny people their rights. And neither is the legislature or the Senate, and neither is the Supreme Court. I'm not going to get into this too much, but I do want to say about the Supreme Court, they have made, controversial rulings in the past before we got to this point where Donald Trump, stacked the court. They have made controversial rulings, but they have never made controversial rulings taking away people's rights, only to expand people's rights. This is the United States of America, okay? We're not supposed to be doing this crap. This is just a little bit more talking about the exact legislation that she signed to expand the protections for LGBT people. I'd like to also mention that since we're talking about women, there is a female attorney general named Dana Nessel also in Michigan. So we have, she has a male lieutenant governor, and that's fine, but she's got a lot of women in her on her staff as well. And just recently, since all these people out there on social media are talking about, oh, she'd do such a great job, why can't they run Gretchen Whitmer? She's not running. She has vowed to stay and finish her job. Has she ruled out running in the future? No, she has absolutely not. And she's openly stated that. But this is not the time. She, in June, launched a PAC supporting federal Democrats ahead of 2024, including Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And she will support Democrats up and down the ballot. By the way, I'd like you to know that this PAC, the way she has written this PAC and structured this PAC, none of the money can be used to fund anything that she may be running for. So she's ethical on what she's doing. Now I'd like to talk about another governor in my own state right here, Maura Healey. You know, we've always had difficulty here electing a woman governor. But not only did we elect a woman governor in 2022, but we elected the first openly LGBTQ woman governor here in the state of Massachusetts. And that is no small feat. Now, I haven't got numbers on how many females are in our legislature and how many, how many are in the Senate. But I can tell you right now that Massachusetts is bright blue in terms of Democrats versus Republicans. And here in the state of Massachusetts, women literally rule. Her lieutenant governor is Kim Driscoll. And by the way, the females have won 5 out of 6 of the state's top constitutional jobs. So there's Maura Healey as governor, Kim Driscoll as lieutenant governor-elect, Diana DiZoglio as state auditor, and Andrea Campbell as attorney general. And Andrea Campbell is the first Black woman to win statewide. They join Michelle Wu, the first Asian American mayor of the city of Boston. She is celebrating actually her first year as mayor at the same time these women were sworn in. So we got it all going for us here in Massachusetts. You will be hard-pressed getting me out of the state, okay? That's not going to happen. I used to think, wouldn't it be nice for me to just move to Italy, where my ancestors are from, and live there? But, since they just elected their first fascist since Benito Mussolini, I think I'll just skip that whole idea. I'm staying right here. So let's talk about what Maura Healey has done. Now, Massachusetts was the first state ever to legalize gay marriage before there was even a Supreme Court decision. So we don't have a whole lot of that basic work to be done like Gretchen Whitmer does. So let's talk about what the Healey-Driscoll administration has done in their first 100 days. They have created a child and family tax credit, increasing the rental deduction in senior circuit breaker and reforming the estate and short-term capital gains tax. Okay. Created Mass Reconnect, which offers free community college to students over 25 years old. Dedicated 1% of the state's overall budget to the Executive Office of Energy and Environment. Tripling investment in the Clean Energy Center, which is leading the way in clean energy, entrepreneurship, job creation, and home electrification. Establish a new education and transportation fund to protect fair share revenue and maximize this new funding source. Fully funding the Student Opportunity Act for K through 12 education, the largest dollar amount increase in Massachusetts in state history. Notifying municipalities of local aid funding levels early to give them a head start on planning to deploy these funds for residents. Freezing the tuition at the University of Massachusetts for 4 years and freezing fees at other state universities for 4 years. Fully supporting the Commonwealth Cares for Children, C3, to help child care providers keep the doors open and invest in programming and staff. Investing in transportation across the state, including MBTA Fares Program, the Red Blue Connector, West East Rail, and regional transit authorities. I could go on. The list is huge, okay? She signed a supplemental budget for $389,000 that combines many of the priorities the administration outlined in 3 separate bills. Investment in C3 grants, MassWorks, the Clean Water Trust, broadband infrastructure, matching grants to compete for federal dollars through the CHIPS and Science Act, funding for the state's housing shelter system to support families and children, universal school meals through the end of 2023 school year to make sure kids can focus on learning in the classroom instead of worrying about being hungry. You know, it's amazing what people can do when they work at their jobs, which is something that the GOP doesn't do, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene at the end. I don't want to focus on them because they are absolutely unfit for public service. But let's talk a little bit about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, since we're talking about governors. She is the only other gubernatorial winner who has a female lieutenant governor, as we said earlier in this show. So these are the things she's done in contrast with Gretchen Whitmer and Maura Healey. Her first thing that she did was ban the use of the word Latinx. Okay, this was really important on some level, I'm sure. And you know, as we all know, she has led the charge to reform her education system. Okay, and she's touting, of course, you know, what she is doing for literacy. Okay. She has passed the LEARNS Act, okay? It stands for Literacy, Empowerment, Accountability, Readiness, Networking, and Safety. All right, she did increase teacher salaries from $36,000 to $50,000, and teachers who were already at $50,000, she gave them $2,000 in raise, okay, $2,000 a year. However, this act also creates a voucher program known as the Education Freedom Accounts. So students can attend private or parochial school or homeschooling. They will be worth 90% of the per pupil funding schools receive from the state. She has also allowed the LEARNS Act. It also allows the Arkansas Department of Education to review policies and materials that, quote, promote teaching that would indoctrinate students with ideologies such as critical race theory, and requires high schools to offer a career-ready pathway as an alternative way to students to earn a diploma in technical education programs. It is expected that this will cost the state $297 million in its first year, okay? And I would like to tell you right now that there is also the Arkansas Public Education, Citizens for Arkansas Public Education that's trying to repeal this act. Because what she is doing, my friends, is taking away money to improve public education and giving it to private, allowing parents to use that money to go to private schools, okay? That is not an improvement in education. She has also passed a law to ban anybody from using the bathroom except for the bathroom they were born, you know, whatever their cisgender birth sex was. So in other words, if you are a transgender female, you cannot go in the ladies' room. You are a transgender male, you can't go in the men's room. You know, I think these are what she's touting as her 100 days. You know, these are her 100 days accomplishments in the state of Arkansas. The difference couldn't be any more stark, in my opinion. And I also want to close out by touching on a Democratic female who we are not supporting. She's not a Democrat anymore. She switched to the independent. She switched to Independent Party. You know who I'm talking about? It's Kirsten Sinema, a woman who was censured by the Arizona Democrats for not bypassing the filibuster and allowing the Voting Rights Act to be passed. Now, in the United States of America, we have the right to vote. And there are other countries that don't even have that right. And we should be expanding access to the voting booth. But not if you're Kirsten Sinema. She for lack of a better explanation, is like Joe Manchin. She likes to wield power. She likes to buck, her party. She takes great pride in that. And she has even had people on her staff say that she really digs when the other side likes her. When she did this, she was receiving handshakes from GOP senators for blocking the Voting Rights Act, which is a really key piece of the Democratic Party's platform. So I remember years ago when she was first running, I remember receiving a letter. I can't really remember who the senator was. It may have been Elizabeth Warren, touting that she was the great new progressive candidate for the Democratic Party. And it probably was Elizabeth Warren, now that I think of it, because I live in the state of Massachusetts and Elizabeth Warren is my senator. But she has transformed herself completely. She switched to independent, according to her, so that she won't be beholden to a party, so she can act independently. But actually, I really do believe that she did this to avoid being primary, because she knows not only are the people in the Democratic Party in Arizona fed up with her, but so are the voters. But she knows she was going to be primaried regardless. And we are not supporting, she hasn't even stated whether she's running again. We do know that Kari Lake is running. She's at least signaled that, by making a speech stating she's the only person that can win, even though she hasn't declared her candidacy yet. I guess that was her way of doing it. And I actually don't believe that Kyrsten Sinema can win, nor do I believe she should win. We are advocating for Democrats up and down the ballot, not for independents, not for third parties, not for no label parties. We know what those are all about. Those people will siphon off votes from the Democrats, not from the Republicans. And that's why they're being pushed right now, because the Republicans have absolutely nothing to run on. And this is not the only this is not the only thing that Kyrsten Sinema has stood in the way of. All right. There are other things, and I'm not going to go through them in detail here, but one of the things that you have to know is that she takes in a lot of money from GOP donors. She received nearly $1 million from Wall Street, and she also killed the tax hike on investors. Now, anyone who tells you that money in politics doesn't change stuff, it definitely does. And we do know there are other corporate Democrats, and we do know they have to go eventually. But this party is moving in the right direction, and the GOP is not moving at all in the right direction. They are moving towards full-on fascism, okay? And fascism is all about corporations wielding power. Just understand that. For more information on her transformation to where she is right now, which is, something quite to the right of progressive, there's a great Mother Jones article about Kyrsten Sinema, and I'm going to close with this. So my point is, we need more women in office, but we need the right women. All right. When you look at the GOP side of the aisle, the Elise Stefaniks, they are just doing Donald Trump's bidding. The whole move by both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert to impeach Joe Biden. They're doing that because Donald Trump wants them to do that, not because they have any legitimate legal reason to impeach Joe Biden. He's done absolutely nothing to be impeached about. Now they want to impeach Merrick Garland for going after Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a victim. Donald Trump is being indicted because of his own actions. There is evidence that is overwhelming, and there's going to be more indictments against him and more evidence against him, not only coming out of Georgia, but coming out of the federal government as we move forward. Women like Carrie Lake, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Elise Stefanik, Marsha Blackburn in the Senate. They are not the women we want to elect. We don't want to elect women like that. Even Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, angsting over the fact that so much of their base now are radical right-wingers. Well, when you keep your mouth shut and you don't push back on any of this, that's what happens. You reap what you sow. They wouldn't even cross the aisle to codify Roe v. Wade on behalf of women. Do we seriously think that Republican women don't have abortions? Do we seriously think that there aren't poor Republican women in America? Do we seriously think there aren't poor white Republican women in America? There are people you elect and people you don't elect. Okay? Know the difference. Get it right. And I just want to say this. We are preparing, endorsement ads. We have them on our website in the Big Blue Tsunami group, not on our website yet, sorry. On Facebook in the Big Blue Tsunami group. There are a ton of Democratic women running for 2024. And we will eventually be doing a show on that. But I just felt like this week, we really, really, really needed to talk about this and needed to talk about the accomplishments these people have made in their first 100 days, what it means to be a public servant. And we're going to end it right here. I just want to say one thing. There are some other women out there. Moms for Liberty is one of them. I want you all to know that last week's Factivist Report was taken down off our YouTube channel. And we were given a strike, and I lost the appeal. And I can't even tell you what the reason was. I believe it's because we were indulging in conspiracy theories. We had 36 articles to back up everything we were saying, and everything we were saying that the Moms for Liberty have said, came out of their mouths. And these articles were evidence of that. What I really actually believed happened is we actually put their name in the title on the video. And they are all over YouTube, Moms for Liberty. They are not only all over YouTube, but they are running an extensive advertising campaign for Brave Books. And I believe that someone from Moms for Liberty saw our video, complained to YouTube, and YouTube took it down. Because nothing we said in there was unsupported by evidence and facts. So we actually had 36 references, okay? 36 references in that video. Now, I do have that video up elsewhere. If anybody wants to see that, you can send an email to factivist.project@gmail.com and we'll send you the link. But that's where we're going to stop for today. And next week, we're going to talk about the overall accomplishments of the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party since Joe Biden's election. Because I feel like nobody talks about this stuff. Nobody knows this stuff. And nobody looks for this stuff. That's the worst part. People in America do not ferret out information very effectively. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week. And before we get to that point, I want to remind everybody as I close this thing out that the Republican Party is now owned by the MAGAs, okay? The party is owned by the MAGAs. That is why you are seeing the base expanded. Traditional Republican voters are either staying away, going elsewhere, not voting. The Republican Party is owned by MAGA. The Supreme Court is owned by MAGA now. And the Republican Party holds 22 trifectas. They hold trifectas in 22 states, okay? The Democrats are getting there, but they're not there yet. But I can't tell you any more emphatically that 2024 is a choice between democracy with all of its flaws. No one's saying it doesn't have flaws. It's going to continue to have flaws because guess what? All of these institutions, Congress, the Senate, whatever, political parties are run by human beings. And wherever there are human beings, there is also the possibility for corruption and self-serving. And that's where the people come in. Okay, that's what they're supposed to be doing, actually. That's called your civic duty. For 52% of registered voters only to show up at the polls during the midterms is, to me, unacceptable, especially after everything you've seen since 2017. And for the United States to be 31st in the world in voting is also very unacceptable. We need to change that paradigm. So I'm hoping we can change it with a little bit of help from some actual facts next week. I will see you then. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.